Welcome to our professional training event. I see some familiar faces, so who's been here before? Welcome, we appreciate you coming back. And who's here for the first time? Oh, thanks, you got a nice combination of people. So I thank you guys for coming. We're going to have an incredible day today. We have a very special speaker today, Dr. Tracy Straub. She got a degree from Penn State University. She has a naturopathic doctorate degree from Trinity School of Natural Health, and she's currently our CEO at Nutritional Frontiers. Without her, I wouldn't be here. God only knows where I would be. And the company wouldn't be here if you guys wouldn't be here. She's done an incredible job. So the great thing is that you can be able to learn things today that you can apply right away in your life, your family, and also your business. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Tracy Straub.
So my name is Tracy Straub. As Jamie said, I've recently become Chief Operating Officer of Nutritional Frontiers, and I'm really excited to work with this team. We have a lot coming up this year. I don't know if you've heard some things that we might have been putting out on Facebook or social media or in our newsletters, which this is our newest holistic truth based on the 5R system. So a lot of work went into this. Candace and I, we wrote a lot of the content in here. So we'll be referring to this a little bit today. We're also putting in a corporate wellness division, which is a lot of fun. We're looking for practitioners for our Finder Network if you have an interest in helping people in the corporate world. In addition to that, we're putting in Nutritional Frontiers University. So this is not a designation or a degree base, but it's more of a way to help practitioners fill gaps, classes like this. If you have any genius you want to share, we would love that and have you come on our platform and create courses with us to help other practitioners know how incredibly brilliant you are. So I'm going to be, I meant that. That wasn't a joke, but if it was funny, okay, I got a laugh. So I don't want to bore you with my background. I've been in the wellness industry about 25 years. So I started when I was 5. So my first degree is in exercise science. I was a personal trainer for 15 years, owned a couple of businesses, went into naturopathic health when I had our first son, John. And he had so many allergies and eczema. He was a C-section baby, and not knowing what I didn't know, I went back to school and learned a lot from Trinity. When I graduated, I felt there were gaps. So I went back to school again. So I just kept going back to school. So I'm really a professional student. So moving forward, I became their VP of operations at Trinity. I redid their curriculum, went and worked from some big biocommunication companies in the area, went out of Utah, and then I ended up here with Jamie. But throughout the whole thing, Jamie and I always remained close. We always had contact in our careers. And so I did some lecturing for them, and it brought me to methylation. When I had my own practice, this was kind of just coming out, right? All these genome mutations were coming into my office, and I thought, I'm not a geneticist. I don't know a lot about this. So I kept having to go back and learn. So how many people understand methylation, MTHFR? Okay, kinda. Has anybody experienced it yet in their practice? People coming in with this? How many people test for it currently? Okay, so back table. Okay, great. So today what we're going to do is we're going to understand, we're going to talk about MTHFR. We're going to talk about all the enzymes that are in that process. We're going to talk about the genome mutation 677T, 1298C, ABC. But really, to get the full effect, you have to understand and go way back to cellular respiration and methylation, understand what that process is to know where it's broken. Okay? So we have to start with our prayer. This information presented in the lecture is for informational purposes only. It's not intended to cure, treat, or diagnose any disease. It does not replace the advice of your licensed medical professional. Amen. Moving on. Okay. So, why did I put this slide in here? This is one of the hottest topics out there. Vaccinate, don't vaccinate, pro-vax, anti-vax, you're a non-vax, you're an ex-vax. We get so many vax things. We have movies about vaccinations. I chose no to vaccinations not because I'm anti-vax, because I'm pro-education. So at the end of this lecture, I'm going to bring it all back to basically putting an end to this dispute. Because it's not about yes or no to vaccinations, and this lecture isn't even about vaccinations. And it's not whether or not vaccinations cause X, Y, or Z. It's about understanding the biochemistry of the body, who can and who can't do certain things, and how you gap fill to get people all to the same plane. Does that make sense? Okay. Those are my kids. They're cute. Okay, I like them. They do. They don't really look like my husband, but I'm just kidding. So this is John. He was my allergy baby. This is Luke. He's 9. He's 5. So this picture was last year, but this is the one that gave me all the issues. 3 months he screamed. Okay, so current statistics. Let's just start here with some stats. Nutrigenomics indicates that some individuals, due to their unique genetic patterns and expressions, do not produce adequate or effective MTHFR, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. Okay? There's a couple of genome mutations that we're seeing out here. These are 2. This is all just kind of statistics to let you know that 50 to 60% in reduction with this one genome mutation. Also with a deficiency of 0 to 20%. 129HC allele. We have all these awesome terms, right? This is some stats about people that have homozygous 677. In Mexico, almost 40% of the population. Does anybody know what 677 genome mutation leads to? This is your heart disease gene, right? How many people do you know that have a Mexican ethnicity have heart disease? It's pretty staggering. So, confusing? Yeah, it is. We're not even going to start with mutations. We're going to start with methylation, okay? I'm going to get into mutations, though. So what is methylation? What does it do and what's normal? So we have to know what's normal to know what's broken. So when the CIA looks at counterfeit money, they don't look at the counterfeit. They look at the real money and they say, okay, this one's fake. So we have to actually look at methylation before we look at what's broken. Because if we look at what's broken first, we don't know how to fix it within methylation. So methylation is the core process that occurs in all cells. It helps your body do 3 things. Repair cells, including DNA and RNA. It detoxifies and creates neurotransmitters. They communicate the signals. And it helps with immune system function. In general, that's what it does. Okay? The whole process of methylation creates what are called methyl groups. These methyl groups can then bind with or be donated to proteins, and what we make out of those are enzymes, hormones, DNA, RNA, all kinds of things that proteins are attached to. Okay? If anything goes wrong in this process, this isn't coded correctly. If it's not coded correctly, your body's not doing the right thing. That's basically the gist of methylation. So part of methylation is our B vitamin cycle. This is how we create and donate methyl groups. It's basically like the nutrition. The second part of it, let me go back once. So I'm a picture drawer. You're going to be really impressed with my artistic ability. So has anybody ever seen this as basically how they lay out methylation for you? Okay? This first circle is your B vitamin cycle. This second circle is your methionine cycle. Okay? This is you. That's food. So when you eat, it comes down into your body, and it goes through 2 different cycles, which are connected. One, your body has to convert or methylate your B vitamins. The second thing it has to do is communicate that into the second cycle to create methyl groups, to create all the pretty proteins that you get, like hormones and fun things like that. Okay? So during this process, low methylation can create low mitochondrial health. Does anybody remember mitochondria, right? It's the powerhouse of the cell, creates ATP, creates oxygen. Never thought you would ever use that again, did you? That's what I thought. When I went through this whole thing, I was like, boy, 4th grade was really important. I should have paid attention. So when we're dealing through mitochondrial health, it determines how much energy this cycle is going to have. So everything's going to play into each other, and we're going to connect all the dots. So genetic mutations, these are the things that affect methylation. I want you to pay attention to this slide for a couple reasons. Genetic mutations like MTHFR is one of the ways that methylation is affected. This entire list right here is all the other ways. Right now, the whole world's focusing on this because about 40 to 50% of the people in our country have some sort of mutation with MTHFR. So that's staggering to know that almost half the population has some sort of SNP, which is a snippet, single nucleotide polymorphism. It means it's slightly off, it's coding wrong, it's saying the wrong thing, it's talking the wrong language. But other forms of stress, such as anything causing oxidative stress, do we have any emotional people in here? The energy healers, right? You know what stress does to the body. This is why it'll actually affect your methylation. Inflammation, heavy metals, environmental toxins. We pretty much have so many environmental toxins, food toxins, our body can barely detoxify on its own. Alcohol, poor food choices, EMF. I have on 2 packs of mics. I'm standing up here. There's a camera going. We all have cell phones. We're being bombarded with EMF. People with MTHFR mutation are very sensitive to EMF. Some. Okay? Lack of sleep and recovery. So some of the indicators that we look for with methylation, and these are some of the easier ones, homocysteine level. What do they look for in the blood for heart disease? Homocysteine, right? Yeah, high homocysteine. Knowing whether or not you have a genetic polymorphism. If you have a mutation is important to know. And now we can almost suspect that when someone walks into our office demonstrating X, Y, or Z, we can send out a test and we can actually find out. And today I'm going to teach you what to do once you do find that out. And you can also look for sulfur. And I'm going to explain why these things come into your urine or into your blood as we move through, okay? This is not a super exciting lecture, and it's a hard one for me to do because I'm always very interactive and make people stand up, and I really can't make you become a polymorphism. So it's hard for me, so I'm working with it, so stay with me. So methyl groups, what do they do in the body? Remember, a methyl group is created and it is donated, and it attaches and it creates these cool proteins. So this is just one carbon with 3 hydrogens attached to it. That's all a methyl group is. They control energy production, stress response, expression of genes. That's a big one. Production of the body's master antioxidant, glutathione. This is a major thing we're going to talk about today. Neurotransmitters, repair of cells, body inflammation, detoxification, immune response. So you know, a few little things in your body this controls. Okay. One thing that you might not realize is that methylation is responsible for the breakdown of histamine. I'm actually going to come back to this slide because it's a really important indicator of your body not producing enough SAMe. Okay. Decreased methylation function increases risk of heart, all of these things. So you can see we have some chronic disorders in here, right? We have some just annoying disorders. Now, can everything be traced back to a methylation issue? Probably, since it basically does all 3 things your body does need to live. But not everybody has a genetic mutation that has a methylation issue. That's my point. Does that make sense? So when someone comes in and they're demonstrating mood disorders, maybe someone has diabetes, you know, they have low immune function, you can't be like, oh, you have MTHFR. That's it, it's over. We may be able to test for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have a genetic mutation. But keep in mind, if 50% of the people in our population actually have a mutation and the other 50% don't, how many people in this country are sick? So how many people do you think have just a methylation issue in general? So even if they don't have a mutation, we can still help them. Okay? All right, so how does this work? So we talked about the B vitamin cycle. And it's really important to understand. Look, I'm sorry, I'm talking down into my mic if that's too loud. So I have some notes. So your B vitamin cycle. This is the methylation cycle. It's an important pathway that controls all cell function. Primary role is to take S-adenosylmethylnialenine, SAM, the role of methyl CH3 group donor to numerous methyltransferase enzymes. So basically what that's saying is you have enzymes in here that have to get the right code. And the way they get the right code is from methyl tetrahydrofolate. So once they go through, we talked about the proteins that they make. They make DNA, proteins, phospholipids, amino acids, neurotransmitters. So as you can see, this system creates a lot of important things that we need. It also does another thing. So this is your B vitamin cycle, or folate cycle. This is where we actually take folic acid and we convert it to the usable form of folate. People that have MTHFR mutation can't do that. Okay, so what does that do at the beginning of the wheel, right? Then we have an offset coding. Then we move over into the methionine cycle. And that's where all the magic kind of happens, where we're actually creating these. Methionine is converted to SAMe. Then the SAMe comes down. A byproduct of methionine conversion is homocysteine. We want to get rid of that homocysteine. Some of it gets converted back into the protein. This is how the folic acid comes in, and I'm going to explain this whole pathway. I just want you to get used to seeing some graphs and that there's two separate cycles that go in with methylation. Okay? So we can take dietary folate. This is where we can supplement some good things that we'll talk about. And then when we connect the two, we can see that we're eating protein, it comes down, we can start going through this wheel, we got folate here, it's being converted, it's creating all of our energy and our nutrients and mitochondrial function, and this whole thing has to work together in a pretty little harmony type of way to create all of the proteins that we need in methyl bodies to connect, such as hormones, DNA, and all that fun stuff.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead. Who's asking? Go ahead.
So, when the diet, food comes in,
Mm-hmm.
how does our digestive system basically separate the folate from the protein? Is that kind of how that happens with the arrows there?
Yeah, well,
Folate comes from?
in the simplest forms, the folate is part of whatever you're eating. It's the vitamin that is within the substance. So if you're eating,
And so it's your digestive system is basically just saying, okay, I need that, and it just takes it over.
everything's frequency, right? So actually this goes through a whole process with the liver and gets converted and coupler and all that kind of stuff. So it comes back around in the end product, and this is super simplified, because if we were really going to get into the actual pathway of how the digestive system brings
Okay.
it, it's big. Yeah.
Visualize
So
it from
the most important thing to take out of this is the understanding that when you eat a diet of real food, your body knows what to do with it. It'll convert to folate. Some people with MTHFR can't convert it well. It doesn't mean they can't convert all of it. It just means they can't convert most of it, maybe 50, 60% down, right? People that don't have a genetic mutation, well, they can convert some of it too, but they might have like a 30% where they can't convert.
I
So,
think what you're saying, so like from the very top,
right,
the process isn't happening right.
Exactly.
because The body process of doing all of this requires the methylation.
right.
process.
It requires the identification and conversion, the reduction of folic acid to methyl-tetrahydrofolate. So if that doesn't happen, then this entire cycle is compromised. If that doesn't happen, this entire cycle that works with this right here in this communication barrier doesn't communicate as well. So we start to get the processes that are supposed to be coming out of here are compromised. We're not getting as good of hormones as we should. DNA synthesis. We're not getting the right coding for things. Go ahead.
So are you thinking maybe this has a role with the mothers when they're pregnant, if they have the
I have a story of that.
Yeah.
I do. Yes, I do.
Because I'm seeing so many autistic kids, and I know,
Okay.
like me, I supplemented so much folic,
Sure.
not knowing at the time.
Yeah. So autism is that we're going to talk about all that stuff, because this is a big topic, and I know everyone's like, just get to the good stuff, but I got to get you to understand this. So
I actually appreciate it.
okay. So she had a question about autism and mom. So I have a story, and I'll gap fill it here. So my friend just called me the other day, and she said, my daughter's pregnant, and the baby has spina bifida. Spina bifida is like, oh, we got to go in and do surgery. And I said, okay. I said, is your daughter have any MTHFR mutation? She's like, I don't know. I said, I'm going to guess she's a heterozygous. Guess. I didn't diagnose it. I'm a guess. She's a heterozygous compound, which means she's 677T and 1298C together. Worst thing you can be, right? She goes back, gets the test, she is. She says, what do I do? I said, well, we're going to increase her folate. Baby's still in there. Baby's still baking. We have some time. Obviously, they'll probably have to do surgery, but maybe we can help, right? I also use DMG. I'm sure you guys have heard DMG, and that's why he's over here as a methyl donor. These methyl donors are going to be extremely important for you to know and help your clients. We're going to cover all that. So we'll see how the baby comes out. Obviously, they're going to have surgery, but there were some other things that they were saying that's going to happen. So all we can do is pray and give in supplements and see what the body can do, right? He's still baking. That's my theory. So this cycle can determine so many things from fetal development in the womb, right? It can also, determine our genetic code moving forward. The interesting thing about MTHFR is the epigenetics of it. It just skips right along, and we're going to do a little activity to show you how fast it goes. Because we're already at 50% of the population. Where are we going to be in 10 years? What about 20? Are our rates of autism climbing? Is it vaccines? Or could it be this? Because anything affects this. You take a child that's born with a heterozygous compound, MTHFR, and you start vaccinating that child. They can't produce glutathione. Glutathione is our major detoxer. What happens after 2 years of vaccinations?
The perfect storm.
The perfect storm. So I'll get back to my story why I chose not to vaccinate at the end, but basically we had the alleles. So moving on, isn't this fun? So, okay, so this is how the cycle looks after it plays out. Homocysteine is a byproduct, okay? But it's also used two ways. It's used to go back and recreate some of the protein we need for this system, but it goes this way to create glutathione at the end of this. And glutathione is what we use to detoxify. So, these are the enzymes that are in this entire process, and I just want to take a minute to walk through these. Because you can flip back and forth on your chart. This is for you to go back and review, but I want to give you a few notes on them, just so you have an understanding. And I can't remember all of these, and I don't expect you to remember all of these, but it's a good reference to keep on your desktop to know. So, MTHFR stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Keep in mind that MTHFR is a gene. Okay, it has an enzyme that it codes. That's the reductase. It uses B9 and B2. MTR, methionine synthase, uses methylfolate, and methylcobalamin, which is B12, to turn homocysteine into methionine. So remember how I said some of this is recycled? So if you don't have the right vitamins, or you can't convert, if you don't have B12, this does not get recycled. So it just keeps building up in the body. Homocysteine keeps building up. Okay? So that's why it's important to understand, like these little things, these little enzymes here, they all require certain Bs in order to do something. Yes?
So what if someone, like, certain diets,
Mm-hmm.
not getting enough B12?
That's right. They're not getting enough B12, so they're decreasing their methylation. It doesn't mean they're sick, but if you're not getting enough B12, they're going to... How many vegans do you hear die of heart disease?